Chapter 1351 Tenfold Fusion Ceremony. While savoring the bloodline mori, Shinji's relaxed brows gradually twisted. Because according to the level of bloodline mori, once Shinji becomes a bloodline mori, he can truly absorb the chakra fruit without loss. Yes, even for the current Shinji, taking the chakra fruit will result in a lot of waste. Because the chakra contained in the chakra fruit is refined from the energy of the planet extracted by the sacred tree, and a large proportion of the chakra is not within the scope of the 7 attributes of yin-yang and the 5 elements, so even the bloodline mori that can fuse the 7 chakra attributes cannot absorb this part of the chakra and use it for itself. Only when Shinji grows into a bloodline mori can he truly absorb all the energy in a chakra fruit without waste. But the more this happened, the more Shinji frowned. Because he found that in the process of gradually becoming a bloodline mortal, he seemed to be getting closer and closer to those overlords who roamed the universe and fed on the world. In other words, in Shinji's view, the path of impacting the bloodline mortal was more and more like making himself a overlord. Do you want to fight against the overlord? Can you only make yourself a overlord? Shinji sighed. The overlord is powerful in all aspects, because every time it devours a world, it will fully receive the power map of this or that world, so each overlord may have different focuses, but they almost do not have the so-called flaws. Perhaps this is also the reason why the Plague Overlord and the Reproduction Overlord did not go to war directly in the Six-Ring world before, but when the Reproduction Overlord was sealed by Shinji and a flaw appeared, the Plague Overlord decisively took action and expelled the Reproduction Overlord. So even if there are differences in strength between the overlords, they will try to avoid fighting, because the outcome is unpredictable. Therefore, if you want to fight against an overlord without weaknesses, perhaps you can only make yourself a overlord. Shinji did not sigh too much, and quickly gathered his thoughts. The overlords are not hated because of their excessive power. People hate them because they are cruel and domineering, and they can easily swallow up an entire world. So power is not wrong, the real fault is the person who uses power. Swallowing 2 chakra fruits only made him realize that there is a realm of blood succession Senra above blood succession net, which does not mean that he has approached this realm. According to his current estimation, at least 5 or even more chakra fruits must be swallowed before it is possible to impact blood succession Senra. Unfortunately, even if he has enough planetary energy at the moment, he does not have so many Otsutsuki sacrifices for him to sacrifice to the sacred tree to breed chakra fruits. Let's take it one step at a time. Shaking his head, Shinji left world number 2. Ninja World. On a mountaintop, Obaru arranged various rituals for the ceremony, turned around and asked Orochimaru in the center of the ceremony, "Have you thought it through? The standard of this ceremony is 10 times higher than my last one. You may die directly during the ceremony." Orochimaru grinned, "Don't worry." Harakua was still worried. He didn't care about Orochimaru's life or death. He was worried that A would punish him for it, so he looked at Amato who was setting up the equipment and guiding the team. Noticing the look in Harakua's eyes, Amato shook his head slightly. For the research involving divine arts, all ordinary research methods are actually not enough, so every attempt of the Institute is actually crazy, even hysterical. A bunch of lunatics. Harakua cursed. He always thought he was crazy enough, but compared with Orochimaru and Amato, he suddenly found that he was the most rational one. He didn't dare to be lazy at all when he had to do what he had to do. Ranmaru, who was responsible for helping him set up the ceremony site, whispered, "Do you really have to do it to this extent? Although I don't understand it very well, this level of fusion ceremony has already surpassed the cell level, right? No one can survive this ceremony." Hirahu said coldly, "They have no choice. All theoretical research on the divine art ends with the strength of chakra. If we can't fuse chakra of sufficient strength, all research is vain and just talk on paper." Then, he lowered his eyes and glanced at the ceremony site. But even if the intensity of the ceremony is increased to this level, it is actually just barely enough to fuse chakra to support the divine art in theory. Ranmaru couldn't help asking, "Is it worth it?" He really didn't understand. It was obvious that A had dominated the world and could do whatever he wanted in the ninja world, so why did he have to study the magic so radically, as if some great enemy was about to come? Hirako didn't understand either, but he agreed with A's research on the magic, because only in this way would he be valuable and not be liquidated. Soon, all the preparations were completed. Compared with this ceremony, the previous one by Hirako and the later one by Ranmaru seemed extremely simple. Because although the overall preparation time for this ceremony was not long, You have to know that this was prepared by the Institute with all its strength, and almost all the manpower and material resources that the entire ninja world could mobilize were mobilized, which was far beyond the reach of the Akatsuki organization, which was still in its dormant stage at the time. All personnel stepped back and waited for the weather. According to Hirako's calculations, there will be an aurora tonight, and the ceremony will be officially launched when the aurora appears. Compared to the nervousness of the researchers around him, Orochimaru, who was in the center of the ceremony, was very leisurely. He crossed his legs. Sitting in the center of the ceremony, he looked around at the 6 racks. The sacrifices for this ceremony were different from the previous ones. They were not bloodline ninjas, but 6 experimental subjects who had survived the cell transplant surgery and inherited the power of Otsutsuki Shiboi. These 6 experimental subjects were imprisoned on the 6 racks corresponding to the ceremony with different chakra attributes. Combined with Orochimaru's own chakra attributes, they just made up the chakras of 7 different attributes of yin and yang and 5 elements. No doubt. If you want to impact the ultra-high quality chakra that can control divine arts, ordinary bloodline ninjas are far from qualified. Only experimental subjects who have inherited the power of Otsutsuki Shiboi are qualified to be the sacrifices of the ceremony. In the distance, Amato was still debugging the instrument. This time the ceremony was not his responsibility. He appeared here just to collect data. As for Orochimaru, he could feel that Orochimaru volunteered this time for selfish reasons, but this did not hinder his plan, because he really needed a person of sufficient weight to challenge this ceremony. The second update is here. Please recommend and vote for me. It's just a small favor, please help me. Chapter 1352. The ceremony starts. Time passed by, and the sky gradually darkened. Soon, a brilliant light shone in the night, like a ribbon cast by a goddess, gently swaying on the night curtain. The aurora has begun. Her mouth curled up. His astronomy is one of the best in the institute. Although successfully predicting an aurora is nothing to him, it is enough to show his existence value among a group of perverted colleagues. Amato looked at Orochimaru in the field. Are you ready? Orochimaru smiled slightly. You can start at any time. The sidelines of the field, Kabuto Yakushi, was sweating. He has participated in so many studies with Orochimaru, and he is considered a top researcher in many fields, so he knows the danger of this ceremony better than ordinary researchers. He also advised Orochimaru privately, but Orochimaru was very determined, which made him faintly aware of a little weirdness. Because although Orochimaru is crazy, he will never do anything without confidence. There must be some hidden reason for his determination now. On another high peak in the distance, Yakumo looked at the high cliff where the ceremony was held and said to Bai beside him, I don't like Orochimaru. He gives me a bad feeling. Bai said, but we need him. Yakumo said, Bara told me before that if this ceremony can succeed, Orochimaru may master the divine art and become an existence beyond Aida and Demon, so I am really worried that he will get out of control. Bai pondered for a moment. The master has nodded to the experimental plan this time, so the master should be prepared. Hearing Bai mention Shinji, Yakumo felt a little relieved. Although Orochimaru gave her a feeling of uneasiness, she was very confident in Shinji. She firmly believed that no matter what, Orochimaru could not get out of Shinji's five-finger mountain. Yakumo said, no matter what, we have to keep an eye on him. And Biriko, that guy has been trying to provoke, we also need to pay attention. Bai, who was about to answer, was stunned for a moment, and then said, the ceremony has begun. Sure enough, a violent chakra suddenly surged on the mountain where the ceremony was held in the distance. The ceremony site. The huge mirrors around, through refraction, gathered the aurora in the sky little by little to the center of the ceremony, and gathered on Orochimaru. The celestial phenomenon can affect chakra. There are many ninjas who have noticed this influence, but the only ninja in the ceremony who has truly developed and used it is Biriko. Orochimaru also admires this point. Standing in the center of the ceremony, he is quietly feeling the influence of the aurora on his chakra, looking for an opportunity to activate the secret technique. No doubt. Even if you know to use the celestial phenomenon, how to use it and when to use it, it depends on the subject himself. Therefore, ninjas who are too weak or lack research on chakra are not qualified to be the experimental subjects this time. This is why Shinji and Amato did not stop Orochimaru, because this kind of work is both risky and requires extremely high quality, and other people really can't do it. Suddenly, Orochimaru opened his eyes and raised his hand to quickly seal, Demon Bud Ra Jutsu. Swish! In an instant, as Orochimaru launched the demon bud Ra jutsu that had been improved by the research institute, large groups of gelatinous demon buds oozed out of his body and squirmed wildly as if they had spirituality. Monitoring area. Looking at the lines of data on the instrument, Beiruo curled his lips. Tisk, this guy has a good timing. Amato did not say a word, staring at the instrument quietly. Orochimaru's first step was perfect. He almost chose the best moment for the aurora to affect chakra to launch the demon bud Ra jutsu. Soon, the restless ghost buds could no longer hold back and swarmed towards the 6 sacrifices imprisoned around the ceremony. Boom! As the ghost buds pounced on the 6 sacrifices, a roar suddenly sounded around them. Undoubtedly, the ferocity of the ghost bud's attack far exceeded everyone's expectations, so that just a very ordinary ghost bud absorbing the sacrifices caused a lot of trouble. Orochimaru raised his eyebrows slightly, and a lot of sweat oozed out of his forehead. Hurry, go up and repair the ceremony. Several researchers hurried forward to repair the ceremony site that was destroyed by the impact of the ghost buds. However, as soon as they stepped forward, the manic ghost buds seemed to sense something and pounced on these researchers who were preparing to repair the ceremony site without hesitation. Swish swish! Yakushi Kabuto, Ranmaru, and Dairada, who had been guarding nearby, hurried forward and rescued the researchers in a dangerous situation. Just when everyone was worried about how to repair the ceremony site in front of the crazy ghost buds, Orochimaru's face darkened, he made a seal, and shouted, "Collect!" The ghost buds scattered throughout the ceremony site seemed to be attracted by something and swarmed towards Orochimaru's body again. Taking advantage of the gap when the ghost buds were restrained by Orochimaru, Obito shouted, "Hurry!" Although the researchers were terrified, they also knew that now was the best time to repair the ceremony site, so they rushed into the ceremony site again, either fiddling with the formation or recording the ritual, and became busy. Orochimaru roared, "Hurry, I can't hold on for long." He who forcibly restrained the ghost buds, the body has shown signs of collapse, and began to thicken in large areas, and the blood even seeped into the gelatinous demon bud. Even if it was Oboro who created the blood fusion ritual, he couldn't help but be secretly shocked when he saw this scene. Obviously, the power of the ritual has increased the demon bud to the extreme. Just a little restraint has caused the intestines of a ninja of Orochimaru's level to rupture and his body to collapse. After a dozen breaths, the researchers who completed the restoration of the ritual site hurriedly left. The power of the ritual was restored again, allowing Orochimaru to have greater control over the demon bud, and the ritual began to restrain the demon bud and suppress the activity of the demon bud. Orochimaru finally got a breath and began to continue the ritual, using the terrifying fusion ability of the demon bud to try to integrate the 6 sacrifices that had been sucked into the demon bud into his body. The ceremony was on track, and the gelatinous ghost bud was slowly absorbed into Orochimaru's body. A large amount of smoke and steam rose from the ceremony site. Under the illumination of the aurora above, the entire mountain looked like a fairyland, as if ascending to heaven in a myth. In the center of the smoke and steam, a bloated object with a strange outline was reflected. Everyone around was holding their breath at this moment, watching the ceremony site quietly, waiting for the result to be revealed. The first update is here. Chapter 1353 Terrifying Data. At this time, whether it was the researchers around the ceremony site or Yakumo and Shiro across a mountain, all looked solemn. Not only were they nervously waiting for the result of the ceremony, but they were also enduring the terrifying atmosphere overflowing from the ceremony site. This kind of breath is hard to describe. It is not a strong chakra, nor is it a kind of murderous intent or obsession, but a literal breath. The ninjas who feel this breath around them feel uneasy and fearful instinctively, just like prey feeling the breath of predators. Damn, did it work? There is no reason for so much smoke. Hello, I am a little anxious, because he is very disgusted with the breath overflowing from the ceremony site. Yakushi Kabuto asked Ranmaru nervously, "What's going on?" Dairada also looked at Ranmaru after hearing this. Ranmaru shook his head. He had already activated his super red eyes, but the things in the smoke were wrapped in a very special chakra, and even his red eyes could not see through them. Ding ding ding! At this time, an instrument suddenly issued a sharp alarm. Then, the second, the third, and then almost all the instruments issued a piercing alarm. The researchers operating the instruments looked at each other, and finally had to look at Amato helplessly. Amato took a deep puff of smoke. All the instruments failed instantly. No, it should be said that all the instruments reached the detection limit in an instant, which made him feel a little at a loss. At this moment, all detection methods failed, and everyone could only wait. Hey! A moment later, a strong wind blew, blowing away the smoke and steam covering the ceremony site, and finally revealing the scene of the ceremony site. Hiss! That is cocoon! Either exclaiming, or taking a breath, or wondering, everyone who saw the scene in the center of the ceremony was surprised. Because in the center of the ceremony, that is, where Orochimaru was before, there was no figure of Orochimaru, but instead a huge gelatinous meat cocoon, which stood at the ceremony site and pulsated rhythmically. Amado looked at Hirako. What's going on? Hirako was also confused. This situation has never happened before. The fusion of the Kimetsu no Jutsu was very rough, and there was no process of cocooning. Among the two people who had experienced the ceremony, both Hirako and Ranmara directly forcibly fused the sacrifice into their bodies and finally successfully obtained the blood limit of the sacrifice. Seeing this, Amado had to tell the assistants around him, "Record." Yes. The researchers immediately began to record the giant cocoon in the center of the ceremony. Just as the researchers were busy recording all the details of the giant cocoon, a click sound came from the colloid giant cocoon. The researchers saw this and retreated in panic. At this time, everyone discovered that the giant cocoon, which was originally colloid and accompanied by regular pulsation, had hardened into a jade-like texture at some point. The cracking sound just now came from the jade-like cocoon. Amado narrowed his eyes and told the assistant beside him, "Record it, our cognition is disturbed by the giant cocoon, maybe it's visual cognition, maybe it's the cognition of time." "Yes, yes." The assistant hurriedly recorded it, sweating profusely. There is no doubt that this giant cocoon is very strange. There are so many people around paying attention, but no one noticed that the gelatinous giant cocoon was hardening in advance. They all realized it after hearing the cracking sound. With Amado's knowledge, he instantly judged that everyone's perception was disturbed by the giant cocoon. As for which perception was disturbed, he couldn't judge for a while. In short, it was nothing more than visual perception and perception of time. Crack, crack, the cracking sound continued, and everyone could clearly see that the jade-like cocoon had more and more cracks. Bang! Then, there was a loud bang, and the cocoon exploded completely. A figure walked out from the smoke and dust. Amado's eyes were stern. The figure who walked out of the cocoon looked 70% like Orochimaru, but his temperament and chakra were completely different from the previous Orochimaru. "Hello, too, Orochimaru." Orochimaru smiled. "It seems that I succeeded by luck." Hearing Orochimaru's response, the people around secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At least it was not a monster that came out of the cocoon. Amado did not relax his vigilance. He still stared at Orochimaru. "How do you feel? Did you get the divine art?" Orochimaru raised his arms. "It feels great. As for the divine art, I can't be sure now. I'm afraid it will take some time to explore it." Amado nodded slightly. This is also normal. At the beginning, Aida and Dimon also figured out the magic little by little. Even now, Aida has not been able to fully master the magic. However, he still did not take it lightly and said, "If it is convenient, come over for a full body check so that I can report to the higher UPS." Orochimaru did not seem to notice Amado's implicit threat. He came to the instrument very cooperatively and received a full body check. After a while, Orochimaru's physical examination data came out. Looking at the physical examination data on the report, Amado's scalp tingled. From the data, Orochimaru's various indicators have exceeded the limits of human beings, even Aida and Dimon who mastered the magic. This kind of data means that as long as there is no accident, Orochimaru must have obtained some kind of magic in the ceremony. He glanced at Orochimaru without leaving any trace, and secretly said, "Don't be omnipotent. The divine art of omnipotence is too unreasonable. In the hands of a love-brained girl like Ada, it can be barely controlled, but if it falls into the hands of an ambitious person like Orochimaru, the consequences will be disastrous." Orochimaru said to Amado, "Is it okay?" Amado nodded. "Well, the physical examination is completed, the data is very exaggerated, and it can be confirmed that the ceremony is successful." At this time, Billahu came over and took a look at the physical examination report in Amado's hand. His eyes flickered. While being shocked by Orochimaru's physical data, a strong sense of unwillingness and jealousy surged in his heart. "Damn it, it's obviously my ceremony, but it actually helped Orochimaru, the bastard. If it were me, I could get rid of the constraints of A and regain my freedom. Damn Orochimaru, you stole my ceremony. At this moment, Billahu felt that everything Orochimaru had should belong to him. Orochimaru looked at Bailuo with a little surprise, as if he heard Bailuo's voice. The second update is here. Please recommend and vote for me. It's just a small favor, please help me. Chapter 1354 Little God Tree. World number 4. Sitting on the top of the God Tree, Shinji read through the reports sent by Amato in detail. These reports are some of the recent achievements of the Research Institute, and the core part is undoubtedly the unprecedented fusion ceremony of Orochimaru. Amato made a very detailed record of the whole process of the ceremony, from preparation to implementation, and finally to the end, which includes images, audio, and various complicated data. For ordinary people, it may be difficult to evaluate these data, but for Shinji, who has been in the forefront of research for a long time and has reached the level of bloodline network, as long as he is a little serious, he can outline the situation of the ceremony seen from the complicated data. It can be achieved to this extent. As Shinji read the report in depth, his face became more and more solemn. It is obvious that the effect of this ceremony not only exceeded the expectations of the Institute, but also exceeded the expectations of Shinji. From the data alone, it seems that the Institute has successfully created a cyborg that is closer to Otsutsuki Shiboi than Aida and Dimon. Especially, this cyborg is Orochimaru, who has excellent strength and scientific research capabilities. Is my Kota Amatsukami still effective? Shinji couldn't help but murmur in his heart. The title of the strongest illusion of Kota Amatsukami is not covered, but it is just a kaleidoscope eye technique, just an illusion. So even Shinji can't judge whether his Kota Amatsukami is still effective at this moment. After all, Orochimaru, who survived the ceremony, has now obtained the chakra of Otsutsuki Shiboi. And at the level of Shinji, he naturally knows that all techniques are based on chakra. So the contest between techniques can often be simply regarded as a confrontation between chakra and chakra. Continuing to look through the report, Shinji's face sank slightly. In his report, Amato mentioned that after the ceremony, Orochimaru cooperated with the Research Institute very well and did not do anything out of line. But based on his understanding of the divine arts and analysis of the data, he suspected that Orochimaru had mastered at least one divine art. As for why Orochimaru did not report, it is worth pondering. On the bright side, it may be that Orochimaru has not yet fully mastered it and is in the exploratory stage. On the bad side, it may be that Orochimaru deliberately concealed it and was planning something in secret. Amato also mentioned that he had arranged Aida and Dimon to monitor Orochimaru around the clock. Maru, and transferred Orochimaru's old subordinates from the Research Institute headquarters with various excuses. Shinji put down the report and looked into the distance. The sky of world number 4 was now covered by dark clouds, and thunderstorms roared from time to time in the clouds, making people feel depressed. The miracle did not happen. The overlord who swallowed world number 1 did not let go of the remaining 5 worlds of the World Destruction Society, but turned around and targeted world number 4 and began to invade quickly. In order to deal with the invasion of the overlord, Shinji had to plant the divine tree in world number 4, snatching food from the tiger's mouth again, and competed with the overlord for planetary energy. Like world number 1 before, the overlord had actually polluted this world in secret, so the invasion was very smooth. It was only a short time after the erosion began, and cracks appeared in the space barrier of world number 4, allowing the overlord's power to penetrate smoothly. For this reason, Shinji had to stay by the divine tree and urge the divine tree to speed up the absorption of planetary energy, and this is why he did not rush back to the ninja world and stare at the ceremony. Swish! At this time, a round metal technology ball flew back to Shinji from a distance. Data collection is complete. Shinji nodded. Xiao Yuan, import the data model. As you wish. After a pause, Xiao Yuan, the technology ball, said, the model calculation will be completed in 15 minutes, please wait a moment. Soon, Xiao Yuan, the technology ball, began to calculate the model at full power. After experiencing several worlds destroyed by the overlord, Shinji collected a lot of precious data and built a model with these data. According to the model calculation, he can now calculate the time when the overlord destroys the world more accurately. After a while, Xiao Yuan finished the calculation and reported, according to the model calculation results, this world will be destroyed in 46 days. Not even 2 months. Shinji sighed faintly. The idiots of the World Destruction Society thought they had found a backer, but in fact, their world had long been thoroughly infiltrated by the Overlord. Under normal circumstances, the Overlord needs at least 1 or 2 years of erosion to penetrate the interior of the space barrier, but the Overlord only needs less than 2 months to completely swallow up their world, which shows how deep the pollution is. This also made Shinji feel the crisis. The Overlord behind the World Destruction Society seemed to be more insidious than other Overlords. This Overlord who would play tricks made him very wary, because the other party could seduce the Lantern Bearers to create a world destruction, and then seduce the Lantern Bearers to create a second one. Under such a huge disparity in strength, it is not a low probability event for the Lantern Bearers to surrender to the Overlord. It seems that in the future, we must not only guard against the Overlord, but also guard against the Lantern Bearers who may secretly surrender to the Overlord. After secretly admonishing himself, Shinji disappeared from the spot in a flash. There are only 46 days left in world number 4. In this case, he has nothing to worry about, so after planting his own sacred tree, he chose another place and released the little 10-tailed beast. Roar! The freed 10 tails roared immediately, but after sensing Shinji's chakra, it instantly became obedient. A bloodline net that has swallowed 2 chakra fruits has no doubt about the suppression of the 10 tails. It landed on the head of the 10 tails, and Shinji tiptoed, be honest. The 10 tails squatted down obediently. Shinji looked around and said to the 10 tails, take root here, absorb as much as you can. The 10 tails became restless, but it did not immediately turn into a sacred tree, because the juvenile body could not rely on its own ability to transform into a sacred tree that can absorb planetary energy. Shinji didn't waste any words, he directly drew out his chakra and infused it into the body of the little 10-tail, and ordered, go. After receiving the chakra of Shinji, the little 10-tail roared to the sky, then turned into a sacred tree and took root in the earth. Shinji landed on the top of the sacred tree that the little 10-tail turned into, looked at the dark clouds above his head, and thought, I will use 2 sacred trees to absorb at a time, let's see what you can do to me. The first update is here. Chapter 1355 Absorbed. Boom! A thunder suddenly exploded in the dark clouds covering the top. The one who was entrenched outside the space barrier seemed to have heard Shinji's provocation and immediately gave his own response. Humph! Shinji snorted lightly. As the second sacred tree took root, the collapse of world number 4 naturally began to accelerate further. In order to determine how much time was left in world number 4, Shinji released the technology ball Madoka again, asking it to collect data again and run the model again. It took most of the day for Xiao Yuan to complete the data collection, and ran the model again with the new data, and came up with a result of 32 days. It's longer than I thought. Shinji said secretly. He thought that with the planting of the second sacred tree, the collapse of world number 4 would be faster, but he didn't expect it to be shortened from 46 days to 32 days. However, after taking a look at the sacred tree that was obviously much shorter under his feet, Shinji was relieved again. Otsutsuki Ishaiki's little 10 tails was obviously not as long as Otsutsuki Kagaya's 10 tails. Compared with the mature divine tree that has taken root in the ninja world for 1,000 years. So the small divine tree transformed by the little 10 tail is far less efficient than the big divine tree in absorbing planetary energy. Shinji stretched out his hand and pressed on the small divine tree to sense it. This wave of absorption of the small divine tree is different from that of the big divine tree. The big divine tree absorbs planetary energy in preparation for the next chakra fruit. The small divine tree absorbs planetary energy only to develop itself. Because the divine tree in its juvenile state cannot breed chakra fruit. This process often takes 1,000 years, even if it is accelerated artificially, it will take at least hundreds of years, because the planetary energy is not so easy to absorb, especially for the young divine tree with weak absorption ability, the premise of the absorption efficiency is very slow. If the small divine tree is planted in the ninja world, Shinji may need to wait for hundreds or thousands of years like Kagaya Otsutsuki before the divine tree matures. But the current situation is a bit special. With the absorption of the internal great god tree and the erosion of the external overlord, world number 4 is in a state of accelerated collapse. In this state, even the juvenile small god tree will greatly improve its absorption efficiency. After all, world number 4 has no resistance. The star core energy of the planet is the best nutrient for nourishing the god tree. If the small god tree can absorb the star core energy, it can greatly accelerate its development. Therefore, although Shinji cannot currently judge how long it will take for the small god tree to grow from a juvenile to a mature body, it will definitely not take thousands of years like Kagaya Otsutsuki. Energy absorption is like rolling a snowball. If the snowball can roll big enough at the beginning, the speed can increase geometrically later. In this regard, Shinji is still confident. After all, when Kaguya Otsutsuki came to the ninja world, she was at most a 6 paths Otsutsuki. Except for a little bit of scheming and plotting against Asahiki Otsutsuki, the rest can be regarded as mediocre. This can also be seen from the fact that she fell into the hands of her 2 sons. Compared with Kaguya Otsutsuki, Shinji has a much greater advantage. Not to mention that his current strength of the bloodline network is much stronger than Kaguya Otsutsuki when planting trees. His identity as the lantern bearer alone gives him the advantage of crushing all Otsutsuki in planting trees. You should know that world number 4 does not have only one planet, but the planet where Shinji is located is the core of world number 4. As long as this core is there, as long as time is long enough, world number 4 will continue to evolve and give birth to new planets one after another in the starry sky. But no matter how good the newly born planet is, its energy density cannot be compared with the planet in the core of the world, so Shinji, who can directly extract the energy of the core planet of the world, is more efficient in planting trees than the Otsutsuki who need to constantly search for evolving planets in the starry sky. Shinji doesn't need to worry too much about the great god tree, so he basically stays with the small god tree in the days to come. In order to allow the small sacred tree to better absorb the energy of the planet, especially the energy of the star core buried deep underground, Shinji even personally dived deep underground and chiseled the hard mantle belt, allowing the roots of the small sacred tree to directly invade the star core. This is difficult to do under normal circumstances, but world number 4 is being attacked from both inside and outside, and the lantern bearer who protects the world has died, so it is impossible to resist. In a blink of an eye, 30 days have passed. At this time, world number 4 has long been a doomsday scene. 5 days ago, the whole world had no difference between day and night, and everything was in chaos. There were lightning and thunder in the sky, and earthquakes, mountain torrents, and tsunamis on the ground. Shinji looked at the sky with fear and said to himself, "It's almost done." According to the speculation of the technology Bal Xiaoyuan, it will take at least 2 days before the complete collapse of world number 4, but Shinji doesn't want to take too many risks. Now is not the time to confront the overlord head-on, and he planted 2 sacred trees at once this time, and it is not as convenient to run away with a bucket as before, so he can only make arrangements in advance. The first thing to be put away was naturally the small sacred tree. Shinji was the Jinchuriki of the big 10 tails after all. Although he could suppress and control the small 10 tails, he was not so good at it. So, he made a seal and then pressed his palm on the trunk of the small sacred tree. With a violent shaking, the small sacred tree quickly pulled out its roots buried deep underground and turned into the appearance of the 10 tails. Compared to a month ago, the small 10 tails had obviously become bigger and even looked a little bloated. Shinji landed on the head of the small 10 tails and smiled, "Are you full?" The small 10 tails burped directly. Shinji was speechless and then put the small 10 tails into the time-still space of Daiheitian. The reason why it was put into the space of Daihenchian instead of the space of Shinwei was that Shinji considered that the number 4 world had been seriously polluted by the overlord, and the little 10 tail might also be polluted by some unknown pollution. The time flow rate in the space of Daihenchian was static, and the pollution on the little 10 tail could not spread, so it would be easier for Shinji to clean it up later. After dealing with the little 10 tail, Shinji immediately rushed back to his own sacred tree. After a little sensing, Shinji found that the overlord had not been idle these days and had been trying to pollute his sacred tree. Humph! Shinji snorted lightly, and then put away his own sacred tree. Boom! At this time, another thunder that made people's eardrums hurt exploded in the sky. It seemed that the overlord sensed that Shinji was going to run away, so very angry. "See you in the next world." Shinji smiled, then activated the power of the lamp to open the space rift and disappeared on the spot. The second update is here. Please recommend and vote for me. It's just a small favor, please help me. Chapter 1356 Taming. As usual, the cautious Shinji did not return to the ninja world directly, but came to world number 2 first and began to purify himself comprehensively. This is the advantage of the lantern bearer. If other Otsutsuki and the overlord were to snatch food from the tiger's mouth like this, it would not take more than a few times for the accumulated pollution to be enough for the Otsutsuki to drink a pot. Even the Otsutsuki at the level of bloodline net is no exception, because the pollution of the overlord is all round, from the body to the chakra, and then to the spirit body. Any corner may be polluted by the power of the overlord. And this kind of pollution is often fatal. The overlord can track the pollution and find the world where the target is, and can also directly detonate the pollution to distort the target and turn it into a monster. Chi chi chi. The soft light repeatedly shines on Shinji's body, and as the light shines, wisps of black smoke rise from Shinji's body, making bursts of sound. Humph! Shinji snorted lightly. Undoubtedly, the black smoke hidden on his body is the pollution of the overlord. He knows some of the pollution, but he didn't realize that he was caught until the light revealed some of the pollution. Shinji is a bloodline net that has swallowed 2 chakra fruits, but he is still hard to defend against. It can be seen that the pollution of the overlord is simply pervasive. After repeatedly shining himself with the light several times and confirming that there is no pollution that has been missed, Shinji then summoned the small ten-tail in the Daikokyuden. Shinji is the ten-tail's Jinkra key, and the purification of him by the light just now also purifies the big ten-tail in his body. But the little ten-tail is in the Mahayana, so it must be purified separately to ensure safety. Soon, the soft light shone on the little ten-tail. Roar! The little ten-tail roared angrily, as if it was very disgusted by the light. Shinji didn't tolerate it either, and slapped it backhand, slapping it hard and flying it out. With a loud rumble, it crashed into the distant mountain. Swish! The next moment, Shinji flashed to the top of the little ten-tail, and hit the little ten-tail's head with another heavy punch, smashing it into the ground. The 2 consecutive blows were just a prelude, and then Shinji launched another round of offensive, beating the little ten-tail to death, and then nailed the little ten-tail to the ground with a black stick. Looking at the little ten-tail nailed to the ground by the black stick, unable to move, Shinji fell on the other's head. Looking down, his eyes were cold. The little ten-tails had lost its arrogance. It lowered its head like a pet that had made a mistake, seeking forgiveness from its owner. Shinji's eyes were still cold, as if he had some murderous intent. After feeling the murderous intent emanating from Shinji, the little ten-tails began to tremble and uttered a series of whimpering wails. Humph! Shinji snorted again. The ten-tails was a very wild monster. Although the little ten-tails in front of him was not yet an adult, it was very wild and would show aggression towards Shinji from time to time. Shinji had already sealed the big ten-tails, so he had no way to control the little ten-tails as a Jinkra key, which meant that he had to teach the little ten-tails what A was. Otherwise, once the little ten-tails ran wild while he was away, it might cause very bad consequences. As for why the little ten-tails disliked the purification of the light just now, he actually knew very well, because the pollution of the overlord was also a kind of energy, and a very high-level energy. The ten-tails was created by the Otsutsuki to collect energy, so it instinctively hates all energy loss, and the purification of pollution by the light is essentially a neutralization and removal of alien energy. So the resistance of the little ten-tails just now was a kind of food protection behavior. Shinji took action directly to tell the little ten-tails that he could give and he could also take back, and his will was above everything. In order to verify whether the little ten-tails was tamed, Shinji summoned the light again to purify the little ten-tails. Swish! Accompanied by the sound, wisps of black smoke rose from the little ten-tails, and then dissipated in the air without a trace, completely annihilated. In this process, although the little ten-tails still resisted a little, it no longer dared to bare its teeth at Shinji. Shinji, standing on top of the little ten-tail, slowly squatted down. If you dare to show your teeth to me again, I will drain your chakra, then dry you into a specimen and throw you into the starry sky. The little ten-tail whimpered. Remember, what I give you is yours. After Shinji taught the little ten-tail a lesson, he began to count the harvest in world number 4 this time. Unlike before, this time Shinji not only planted the sacred tree, but also planted 2 at a time, so the energy grab of world number 4 was very exaggerated. This is also the reason why the Overlord was so angry in the end. Because in the eyes of the Overlord, the 6 worlds of the World Destruction Society have long been its food on the plate, and it is its forbidden food. But Shinji was more and more excessive. In world number 1, he only robbed less than 30% of its energy, but in world number 4, he directly robbed 50% of its energy, which directly halved its income from devouring a world. Almost half of the energy of world 4 naturally gave Shinji's 2 sacred trees a lot of benefits. Shinji's own great sacred tree was pregnant. After the second chakra fruit was produced, the stored energy was completely emptied, but after absorbing in world number 4, it stored half of the energy needed to produce a chakra fruit. In other words, if it happens again, it can accumulate enough energy to produce another chakra fruit. As for the little sacred tree, this wave of absorption is enough to equal its absorption for hundreds of years under normal circumstances, so just from its size, it can be seen how full it is this time. Shinji feels that if it happens again, it may become an adult. Such a harvest is undoubtedly exciting. Shinji even had the idea of planting trees in the remaining 4 worlds of the World Destruction Association immediately. After all, with the fall of World Number 1 and World Number 4, he can be sure that all 6 worlds of the World Destruction Association have been targeted by the Overlord, and there is no luck. But he soon gave up this idea. First of all, he has set a rule for himself to plant trees only in the world invaded by the Overlord, and not touch the normal world at all. Secondly, if the Overlord had not eroded the spatial barriers of the world and broken the balance within the world, his efficiency in planting trees would not have been so high. Just like in World Number 4, if the Overlord had not destroyed the stability of World Number 4 from the outside, it would take at least hundreds of years for his sacred tree to absorb so much energy. Therefore, planting trees in a world invaded by an Overlord is both for principle and efficiency. Here is the first update. Chapter 1357 Take action yourself. It will take another day or 2 for World Number 4 to completely collapse. After the Overlord devours World Number 4, it will take some time to find the other 4 worlds left by the World Destruction Society. Therefore, after completing the purification, Shinji will have some free time to return to the ninja world. After returning to the ninja world, Shinji did not hesitate and immediately came to the institute. He first summoned Yakumo and Bai, and learned from them what happened in the institute during this period, and then summoned Amato. When he saw Shinji, Amato was stunned. He himself could not explain why, but based on his feelings, he vaguely felt that Shinji seemed to have become stronger again. Shinji said, "How is Orochimaru?" Amato quickly replied, "The power brought to him by the ritual is very strong, and he is still adapting." Shinji raised his eyebrows and became interested. "Very strong." Amato had followed as Heike Otsutsuki and created the siblings Ada and Dimon who possessed the divine arts. His vision and knowledge were beyond doubt. Even he described them as very strong, which naturally further aroused Shinji's interest. "I arranged a lot of tests, and Orochimaru passed them easily." After saying that, Amato handed Shinji a report. After taking the report and reading it, Shinji found that Orochimaru, who was still in the adaptation period, had defeated masters such as Dairada, Ranmaru and Zabuza one after another, and showed a great advantage, and it would not be an exaggeration to describe it as crushing. Shinji glanced at Amato. "Is that all?" "Yet." Amato nodded slightly. After Orochimaru defeated Dairada, Ranmaru and Zabuza, he stopped arranging tests. Firstly, all the masters he could mobilize had already been deployed, and sending some less powerful people to the test would not have any test effect. Secondly, he was worried that excessive testing would encourage Orochimaru's ambitions, so he held back his last trump card, Aida and the Dimon siblings. Seeing Shinji frowning slightly, Amato said, "According to the test data, without considering the factor of divine arts, Orochimaru's strength should have surpassed Aida and Dimon, so I did not arrange for them to take the test." Shinji heard Amato's concern and raised his eyebrows. "Is the effect of this ceremony really that good?" Amato nodded solemnly. "The effect is better than expected. Beiruo has begun to clamor for a second ceremony." Shinji waved his hand. "Let's go and meet Orochimaru." Hearing is false, seeing is believing. Only by seeing it with his own eyes can he know what kind of power Orochimaru got in the ceremony. Amato hesitated. "Do you need to make some preparations?" Shinji asked. "Prepare?" Amato reminded politely, "It is still unknown how many kinds of divine arts there are. If Orochimaru obtains some unknown divine arts, it may pose some threats to you." Shinji smiled and said, "You are overthinking. Let's go." He knew how strong he was now. If Otsutsuki Shiboi came, he might have to avoid him, but if Orochimaru only obtained part of Otsutsuki Shiboi's power, he was not qualified to avoid him. Soon, Shinji came to Orochimaru's test site. Considering safety issues, Amato notified Aida and Dimon, and Yakumo and Bai followed him when they learned that Shinji was going to see Orochimaru. Seeing Shinji coming in person, Orochimaru smiled. "I thought you were not going to see me. I've been busy lately." After a pause, Shinji looked at Orochimaru and asked, "How do you feel?" Orochimaru moved his body. "I have to admit that the ritual created by Hiriko is a genius idea. As long as the sacrifice is suitable enough, even a god can create it. Come." Shinji said calmly, "God?" Orochimaru clenched his fist and said to Shinji seriously, I feel like I have gained the power of God. Shinji waved to Orochimaru, then let me see it. Seeing that Shinji wanted to test Orochimaru himself, everyone quickly retreated to the outside of the field, and Amato came to the instrument and stared at the data on the instrument. On the sidelines, Yakumo looked worried. Nothing will go wrong, right? Bai said, don't worry, the master has never made a mistake. Yakumo nodded, but there was still worry in his eyes. During this period, she had been paying close attention to Amato's several tests on Orochimaru, so she had a very intuitive understanding of how strong Orochimaru was now. She felt that Orochimaru was far superior to her now. In her opinion, even strong people like Karin and Hikari might not be Orochimaru's opponents, so even though she was full of confidence in Shinji, she was still worried about accidents. On the other side, Dimon smiled and said, it's going to be fun. Aida had a serious expression, be careful, are we ready to attack at any time? Action. After a pause, Dimon asked, against whom? Pa. After tapping Dimon's head gently, Aida said, of course it's against Orochimaru. He gives me a very bad feeling. If A can't suppress him, we will immediately help A deal with him. Oh. Dimon responded. On the field, Shinji said to Orochimaru, who was eager to try, let's do it. At this point, he was too lazy to confirm whether his Kota Amatsukami was still effective. What he needed to do was an open conspiracy, that is, to defeat Orochimaru head-on, so that Orochimaru, who had gained power, could only lie dormant honestly. He was not afraid of conspiracy, nor did he reject the ambitions of his subordinates. Facing the dilemma of the overlord pressing step by step, what he needed was the hope of breaking the situation, so if Orochimaru could really show strength beyond his expectations, it would be a new hope and a new way for him. Orochimaru seemed to see through Shinji's mind. Without any extra nonsense, he directly jumped towards Shinji. Bang! The first time the two sides fought, a huge impact wave was instantly aroused, and the people around the test field were repelled several steps. Orochimaru smiled and said, how is the strength? Shinji had a blank expression, it's okay, continue. Orochimaru's face darkened slightly, and he immediately punched again. Shinji stepped aside, and then a roundhouse kick hit Orochimaru's back, kicking him out. So fast. Everyone on the sidelines was stunned. None of those who could watch the test field were weak. Even the researchers with weak strength had the assistance of high-speed cameras, but even so, few could capture Orochimaru's movements. However, the irony was that Orochimaru, who had such a terrifying speed, was easily knocked away by Shinji in a face-to-face encounter. It's just a small favor, please help. Chapter 1358 10 seconds. In the pit, Orochimaru, who had been smiling jokingly, gradually became more serious. He then climbed out of the pit, his eyes piercing through the smoke and dust, and stared at Shinji standing in the center of the test field. The brief confrontation just now not only shocked the people on the sidelines, but also surprised Orochimaru himself. He brushed off the dust on his body, and his face was no longer relaxed. After enduring the ceremony, his strength increased day by day, and sometimes even he was shocked by this rapid increase in strength. The increase in strength naturally contributed to the growth of his ambition, so Amato's judgment was not wrong. Orochimaru did have a change of heart. The emergence of a change of heart also shows that Shinji failed to use the Kota Amatsukami on him. It worked. But despite this, Orochimaru did not choose to turn hostile immediately. First, his condition has not yet completely stabilized, and he still needs time to adapt to this huge increase in strength. Second, he thinks the environment of the research institute is very good, and staying here will facilitate his better research on divine arts. The last point is that he is afraid of Shinji. This confrontation is not so much a test as a test of his and Shinji's mode of getting along. If the winner is him, he doesn't even need to win, as long as he can compete with Shinji, then he can jump from the status of Shinji's subordinate to an equal partner. But if he loses, then he can only maintain the status quo and continue to work honestly for Shinji. You are worthy of it. After moving his body, Orochimaru said in a deep voice, I made a mistake just now. I actually wanted to test it first. I won't do it next time. On the sidelines. What? The speed just now was just a test. We were fooled. The crowd, especially the researchers who had participated in the test of Orochimaru's strength, were surprised and indignant. Amato's face was also gloomy. From Orochimaru's words, Orochimaru didn't use his full strength in the previous tests. Everyone, including him, was fooled by Orochimaru. On the field, Shinji was unmoved, but waved at Orochimaru, signaling him to continue. Orochimaru grinned, "Be careful, I'm coming." Shua. Before he finished speaking, Orochimaru the whole person turned into a shadow and pounced on Shinji. His speed was so fast that in just 10 meters, he set off an incredible sonic boom. Everyone on the sidelines changed color. This really shocked them. Many people even subconsciously flew back. Just when Orochimaru was about to pounce in front of Shinji, Shinji just raised his hand and whispered, "Shinra Tensei." Boom! A huge repulsive force was generated out of thin air, and like an invisible big hand, it resisted Orochimaru who was attacking Shinji. From the speed of the sonic boom to stillness, almost in the moment when no one could react, Orochimaru stopped in front of Shinji. What a joke! Under the invisible repulsive force, his face was extremely ferocious. Obviously, facing the Shinra Tensei launched by Shinji, he not only did not intend to avoid it, but also wanted to break through head-on, trying to resist the repulsive force of Shinra Tensei and attack Shinji. It's no wonder that the huge repulsive force of Shinji's Shinra Tensei blew away the reinforced floor of the test field, and even the air seemed to be compressed, but Orochimaru still resisted this repulsive force and slowly moved forward. Tisk! Shinji spat lightly and increased the output of his pupil power. Boom! Almost at the moment when Shinji increased the output of his pupil power, Orochimaru had no resistance and was blown away by Shinra Tensei. However, Orochimaru, who was blown into the air by Shinra Tensei, did not fall to the ground as everyone expected, but after moving away from the core area of the repulsive force of Shinra Tensei, he immediately adjusted his body shape in the air, stepped on the tiles that were also repelled by Shinra Tensei, and pounced on Shinji again, and this time the speed was faster than before. Boom boom! A huge roar exploded in the test field. Then, all the people watching on the sidelines were blown away by the air wave. Even the powerful Aida and Demon siblings had to retreat dozens of meters. Other researchers such as Amato were no exception, and all of them were blown away along with their instruments. When the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, the original test field had turned into a large pit that was more than 10 meters deep. Shinji stood in the pit, his body spotless, and even his expression did not change much. The impact force of Orochimaru just now. It was close to the level of 6 paths, but that was it. For Shinji now, this strength was not enough for him to take it seriously. In the air, Orochimaru did not use any technique, but floated directly in the air, looking down at Shinji in the pit, his face gloomy. Although the attack just now was not his full strength, he was still a little shocked when he saw that Shinji resisted it so easily. How is this possible? He knew better than anyone how terrifying his own strength was after the ceremony. He thought that even if he couldn't beat Shinji, he could still gain some autonomy and voice from Shinji with his strength, but he didn't expect that Shinji would still stand in front of him like a mountain, making him unable to surpass. In the distance, Amato, who was blown away, climbed up from the ground and straightened his glasses that were tilted to his ears. He looked at Orochimaru floating in the air. Flying ability? Humph, it seems that Orochimaru has hidden a lot of abilities. The unusual movement on the test site has attracted the attention of the entire research institute, and more people are rushing here. Hearing the noise in the distance, Shinji lost his patience. My time is precious, I don't have time to play with you here, now I will take action. 10 seconds. Orochimaru, as long as you can block me for 10 seconds, I will recognize you. 10 seconds. Orochimaru looked embarrassed. He knew that he had underestimated Shinji's strength, but Shinji's words obviously looked down on him. He would never believe that he could not even last 10 seconds. Shinji did not explain any more and said, "Let's start." As soon as he finished speaking, Shinji came to the front of Orochimaru in the air in an instant. Then, at the moment when he activated the 10,000 Things Heaven attraction to absorb Orochimaru, he gathered strength in his right hand and punched Orochimaru fiercely. Not good. Orochimaru's expression suddenly froze. The sudden suction force made it impossible for him to stabilize his body. At this moment, he could no longer care about being annoyed by the 10-second appointment just now, because he knew very well that if he could not defend against Shinji's punch, he might not even last a second. The first update is here. Chapter 1359 6 Paths Level Combat Power. Instantly, Orochimaru made a decision and entered a special state, with his whole body wrapped in a green chakra. That is some kind of chakra mode. Such a strong aura. The onlookers who were blown away by the airwave before, as well as the researchers who came from the research institute one after another, all exclaimed after seeing this scene. The research institute now gathers almost all the top researchers in the ninja world, so the chakra mode that is considered a secret in the ninja world is not a high-end secret in the research institute. Such as the lightning chakra mode of Kyumigakuer, the Nine Tails chakra mode that Naruto had shown before, etc., are all within the research scope of the research institute. So many researchers recognized at a glance that Orochimaru should have activated some unknown chakra mode at this moment. Amato refused the medical staff who were ready to treat his wounds, stared at Orochimaru in the air with concentration, and murmured, "It seems that he has hidden a lot." Undoubtedly, like the ability to fly, the special chakra mode displayed by Orochimaru at this time was also not shown in the previous tests. In the air, facing Orochimaru who suddenly activated the special chakra mode, Shinji was neither surprised nor happy, and he swung his fist without any hesitation. Orochimaru, who was pulled towards Shinji by the Tianyan of all things, had no choice but to cross his hands in front of his chest. At the same time, the blue chakra wrapped around him turned into several ferocious blue-scaled snakes and pounced on Shinji. Bang! A low muffled sound exploded in the air. Then in the eyes of everyone, whether it was the blue-scaled snakes transformed by Orochimaru or Orochimaru himself, they were all blown up by Shinji's punch, and even the chakra mode on Orochimaru was extinguished by Shinji's punch. Boom! Then, with a roar, Orochimaru fell heavily to the ground, and a new big pit was smashed on the edge of the pit in the test field. The knot is over. It was solved with one punch. It didn't even last for a second. This is too exaggerated. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. The speed, strength, and even chakra strength displayed by Orochimaru have surpassed the normal level. In the eyes of many people, it can be compared with the previous Otsutsuki's Haki. But even so, Orochimaru couldn't even block a punch in front of Shinji, which was really beyond everyone's expectations. So strong. Aiden's face changed. Even though she had the clairvoyance, she couldn't understand Shinji's strength at this moment. You know, in the battle between Shinji and Otsutsuki's Haki a few months ago, she could still guess Shinji's approximate strength, but she didn't expect that in just a few months, Shinji's strength would increase so much, so strong that she was shocked. Demon shrank his head and dared not look at Shinji. He was beaten up by Shinji in Konoha village before. Although he was very afraid of Shinji, he was not afraid deep down in his heart, because he felt that although he was a little weaker than Shinji, he was not completely without a chance of winning. If he had help, Shinji could be defeated in his eyes. But now he dared not have such an idea, because Orochimaru, who was stronger than him, was blown up by Shinji with one punch. Amato was receiving treatment at the moment. He was seriously injured as an ordinary person when he was blown away by the shock wave just now. However, he was not distressed by the injuries on his body. On the contrary, he looked into the air with a flickering look. Obviously, he also discovered the terrifying improvement of Shinji's strength. If Orochimaru's improvement in strength after the ceremony had already frightened him, then Shinji's improvement was completely beyond his understanding. He really couldn't imagine how Shinji, who had fought back and forth with his Haki Otsutsuki not long ago, suddenly became so strong. Of course, if he knew that Shinji had swallowed 2 chakra fruits in a row during this period, he would not have such doubts. In the air in the distance. On the outer terrace of the flying fortress, Karin, Hikari, and Tonari Otsutsuki stood in a row, looking at the test site of the research institute. They naturally knew that Orochimaru's strength had greatly increased after the ceremony, and they also sensed that Shinji had returned to the ninja world, so they all secretly paid attention to this test of Orochimaru by Shinji. When seeing Orochimaru being blown up by Shinji's punch, Karin said, "Go back." Tonari sighed, "The master has become stronger again." Hikari smiled, "There is no need to worry at all." After that, the 3 of them turned around and walked towards the flying fortress. And if someone is here, they can find that behind Karin and Hikari, several ink-colored seeking jades floated. There is no doubt that while Shinji was busy planting trees, Karin and Hikari broke through the shackles one after another and finally successfully broke through to the 6 paths level. On the test field. Compared to the amazement of the people around him, Shinji, who stood in the air like a god, had a thoughtful look on his face under the mask. To outsiders, it seemed that Shinji had easily beaten Orochimaru with the punch just now, but only Shinji himself knew how much resistance his punch encountered. Just the blue-scaled snakes transformed by the chakra released by Orochimaru made Shinji feel a lot of resistance. If Shinji had not been a bloodline net now, and had swallowed 2 chakra fruits to become a higher-level bloodline net, if he had been replaced by an ordinary 6-path level, he might not be able to deal with the blue-scaled snakes of Orochimaru. After defeating the blue-scaled snakes, Shinji's fist hitting Orochimaru clearly felt a sense of sluggishness. Until now, Shinji is still recalling that feeling. Just like a punch in a quagmire, every inch of progress requires twice the force than normal. Interesting. Shinji finally smiled. Others may not recognize the special chakra mode that Orochimaru used just now, but Shinji recognized it at a glance. It was the special sage mode of Mitsuki in the original time and space. Of course, the two are not exactly the same. This chakra mode of Orochimaru not only contains high-density natural energy, but also has extremely high-intensity chakra, which makes Orochimaru, who activates this chakra mode, have to some extent the ability to interact with everything around him. In other words, everything around him can be controlled by Orochimaru at will, including water, land, trees, and even the air that penetrates everywhere. So Orochimaru may not have reached the state of yin and yang unity yet, and cannot condense the seeking the way jade, but his combat power is at the real 6 paths level. The second update is here. Sorry, I had something to do at home yesterday. Chapter 1360 Divine Chakra Mode. In the deep pit on the ground, Orochimaru half knelt, supporting himself with his hands. How is this possible? His head was buzzing at the moment. Such a big defeat was completely beyond his expectations. He didn't expect that he would be defeated by Shinji with one punch even after using the Divine Chakra Mode. Yes, he named this special chakra mode he created for himself the Divine Chakra Mode. Because this mode was not only integrated into his Senjutsu chakra, but also integrated into Otsutsuki Shiboi's terrifying chakra, so in his opinion, only the word God can appropriately describe this chakra mode. So he always regarded the God chakra mode as a trump card. If it weren't for the huge pressure Shinji put on him just now, and for a short moment, he even had the illusion that he might die, he would not easily use the God chakra mode. As a result, the God chakra mode regarded as a trump card was defeated in this way, which was really hard for him to accept. In the air, Shinji looked at Orochimaru in the deep pit and exclaimed. He didn't hold back on the punch just now. He thought Orochimaru would at least be injured. Now it seems that the power of that punch seems to have been absorbed by Orochimaru's special chakra mode. Shinji took a deep look at Orochimaru. At this moment, he couldn't help comparing Orochimaru with the previous Ishiki Otsutsuki. He felt that if Ishiki Otsutsuki didn't use the eye techniques of Daikokyuden and Shoname Tetsu Pasha, he would not be the opponent of Orochimaru today if he only competed in physical skills. Thinking of this, he couldn't help laughing. The original intention of his founding the research institute was to study divine arts to provide him with some new ideas and help to further improve his strength. Unexpectedly, this group of lunatics in the research institute actually used the experimental subjects who had successfully transplanted the cells of Shiba Otsutsuki as sacrifices, and created a new version of the blood fusion ritual, and really created a 6 paths level combat power, which made him laugh and cry. But no matter what, the results are now out, proving that the research institute has taken a big step in the research of divine arts. After falling to the ground, Shinji stood by the pit, quietly looking down at Orochimaru in the pit. At this moment, Orochimaru had recovered. He lowered his head with an uncertain expression. However, the moment he looked up at Shinji, the anger and unwillingness on his face disappeared, and he was replaced by a face full of admiration. He said honestly, I didn't expect that I couldn't even block your punch. I'm really embarrassed to see you like this. Shinji looked at Orochimaru, I need you to cooperate with the Yamato test unconditionally in the future. Can you do it? I am willing to serve you. Orochimaru bowed quickly. Shinji nodded with satisfaction. Orochimaru was still sensible and knew when to bow his head. At present, the enemy was at hand and the ninja world could be destroyed at any time. Even if Shinji knew that Orochimaru was not really surrendering, he would not attack Orochimaru at this time and consume the overall strength of the ninja world. And as Orochimaru gave in and bowed his head, a possible rebellion was strangled in the bud by Shinji, who acted decisively. After giving a few words to Amato, Yakumo, and Shiro, asking them to be wary of Orochimaru, Shinji did not stay in the research institute for long and returned directly to the flying fortress. When he saw the Seeking Truth Jade behind Karin and Hikari, Shinji grinned, sure enough. In fact, when testing Orochimaru, Shinji had already sensed the unusual chakra fluctuations on the flying fortress, but he was busy dealing with Orochimaru's affairs at the time, so he temporarily suppressed it. Karin said, "Sir, the wedge you gave us allowed us to experience the real 6 paths level in advance, which gave us great inspiration. Coupled with the chakra impact ability of Hikari's 8,000 spears, we finally succeeded." Hikari smiled and said, "Shinji, we didn't disappoint you." Shinji nodded slightly, well done. At his current level, Shinji actually doesn't need helpers below the 6 paths level anymore, which is why he considered whether to let Karin or Hikari swallow the second chakra fruit when he obtained it. Now, Karin and Hikari no longer give him a headache. With their own abilities, they finally passed the hurdle of the 6 paths and became the real 6 paths. Although Karin and Hikari already possessed the 6 Megatama Samsara Eye and their strength was infinitely close to the 6 paths, the hurdle that prevented them from being promoted to the 6 paths was actually very difficult to cross. Both Shinji and Tonari actually used tricks. For example, Shinji crossed to the 6 paths by sealing the 10 tails and becoming the 10 tails Jinkra Ki, while Tonari used the Reincarnation Eye Chakra and the blessing of the giant Reincarnation Eye on the moon to cross to the 6 paths. Even for Shin, who was a perfect Miko, Shinji had to find another way and let Shin practice magic, trying to break through the 6 paths with the power of the magic ring. The reason why it took so long was that Shin was forced to practice magic and tried to break through the 6 paths with the help of the magic ring. There are so many ways. It's not that Shinji is bored. It's just that the hurdle of the 6 paths level is very difficult to cross. He can only use all means and think of all kinds of ways. After sighing, Shinji asked in detail about the process of Karin and Hikari breaking through the 6 paths level. After listening to the description of the two, Shinji was thoughtful. Obviously, the means by which Karin and Hikari broke through the 6 paths level, like the various methods before, cannot be summarized as the conventional means of impacting the 6 paths level. According to the two, half of the reason why they were able to successfully advance to the 6 paths level was the wedge given to them by Shinji, which allowed them to experience the state of the 6 paths level in advance before they became 6 paths level and familiarize themselves with the 6 paths level chakra. This kind of advance experience is very important. It provides an anchor point for them to impact the 6 paths level later, so that they have a trace to follow. Secondly, Hikari's 8,000 spears once again played an important role. This technique is so powerful and easy to use. It can gather the absorbed chakra together and then infuse it into a certain target, causing qualitative change by quantitative change. Karin experienced the state of 6 paths in advance, and then when Guang used 8,000 spears to launch a chakra attack on her at all costs, she instantly broke through that barrier, took that step, and entered the 6 paths. Then Karin gave back, using the 8,000 spears temporarily delivered to her by Guang to launch a chakra attack on Guang, and successfully broke through the shackles of Guang and entered the 6 paths. There is no earth-shattering creativity, nor any mysterious experiment, everything happened so naturally. The first update is presented. Chapter 1361 Second Ritual Plan. It's so smooth as if it were a natural outcome. Shinji couldn't help but sigh. From his perspective, it is not difficult to find that the reason why Karin and Hikari were able to advance to the 6 paths level so smoothly is that in addition to the role of the wedge and the 8,000 spears they mentioned themselves, there is another very important factor, a factor that they all ignored. That is accumulation. In fact, whether it is Karin or Hikari, they have steadily improved their strength through various surgeries and training by Shinji over the years, and it is almost impossible to make any progress below the 6 paths level. Not to mention anything else, the 6 Megatama Samsara Eyes in their eye sockets alone are already the upper limit of the bloodline limit of the pupil technique in the ninja world. High-level pupil techniques such as the Samsara Eyes and the Reincarnation Eyes are slightly inferior to them. In addition, with repeated cell fusion, their sage bodies have also been completed, and the bloodlines of the Senju, Uzumaki, and Uchiha have merged with each other, making them infinitely close to the 6-path sage in terms of physique. Therefore, whether it is the pupil power, chakra strength, or the most basic physical fitness, they have already reached the standard for promotion to the 6 paths level, so the wedge and 8,000 spears were able to play their roles later. Otherwise, even with the wedge and 8,000 spears, they would not have been able to be promoted to the 6 paths level so smoothly. Taking various factors into consideration, the method used by Karin and Hikari to be promoted to the 6 paths level is not universal. It is not that it is completely impossible to copy, but the investment required for copying is too large, which requires not only energy investment, but also time investment, and there is also a great deal of uncertainty. After understanding the situation of Karin and Hikari, Shinji issued a new order to the three of them, that is, to keep them on standby from now on to guard against the Otsutsuki who may descend on the ninja world at any time. For Shinji, this is also a helpless thing. There are still 4 worlds left on the World Destruction Society side, so he must intervene, otherwise, letting the Overlord swallow 4 worlds in a row will greatly expand the Overlord's strength. But he had sent out bait to the Otsutsuki in the starry sky before. He didn't know about other Otsutsuki, but Momoshiki, Urashiki, and Kinshiki in the star field near the ninja realm would definitely receive the bait he sent out. Therefore, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, anyway, from the moment he sent out the bait, the Otsutsuki could come to the ninja realm at any time. Since he himself couldn't stay in the ninja realm all the time, he could only ask Karin, Hikari, and Tonari for help. Fortunately, Karin and Hikari have now successfully promoted to the 6 paths level. Even if Momoshiki, Urashiki, and Kinshiki come to the ninja realm at the same time, the combination of Karin, Hikari, and Tonari is not without the power to fight. What's more, there are Orochimaru, Aida, and Dimon, who have transplanted the power of the Otsutsuki Shiboi, at the Research Institute. Even if he is not in the ninja realm when the Otsutsuki come, there should not be too many problems. After explaining this matter, Shinji stayed in the ninja realm for a few more days, dealt with some trivial matters, and then returned to world number 2. These few days are enough for the Overlord to completely devour world 4, so he must return to world 2 immediately and inspect worlds 3, 5, and 6 to determine who the Overlord's next target is as soon as possible. Shinji's departure was not publicized, so the Research Institute was not aware of it, and everyone was advancing the research plan in an orderly manner. There will be a celestial phenomenon next month, and we must not miss this God-given opportunity. In the meeting room, Bailu talked freely, selling his plan to the leaders of other research groups. No doubt after seeing Orochimaru gain a terrifying power boost through the ritual, Hiraho could no longer suppress his ambition and wanted to repeat Orochimaru's ritual so that he could also have a power similar to that of Orochimaru now. Amato looked at the plan submitted by Hiraho and shook his head. No, there are too many variables in this plan. Tsunade also threw the plan on the table. Hiraho, you are too radical. We haven't completely analyzed Orochimaru's ritual yet. It's a gamble to rush to carry out the second round of rituals at this time. I won't agree. Shizuan, who was an assistant at the side, secretly glanced at Tsunade, and then quickly retracted her gaze. Then, Orochimaru said with a smile, Hiraho, you are too impatient. The ritual is not as easy as you think. Be careful not to lose your life. Hiraho's face was livid, and he roared in a roaring tone, even you can succeed. I developed the ritual and secret technique myself. Do you think I will fail? Orochimaru, you just want to stop me so that you can take the results of the ritual for yourself. Hiraho's gaffe made everyone present frown, but there was one thing everyone had to admit. It was indeed the ritual designed by Hiraho that made Orochimaru what he is today and made the research of the Institute a big step forward. Amato pondered for a while and said, Hiraho, calm down. The Institute supports any project in principle, including your ritual. It's just that it's difficult for the Institute to find 6 sacrifices that meet the conditions of your ritual, so research and discussion are necessary. Everyone nodded. There are not many experimental subjects who can survive the cell transplantation surgery, and there are even fewer serious criminals and wanted criminals who can be executed at any time. In addition to 6 sacrifices, a ritual also requires chakra attributes and strength requirements. No matter how rich the research institute is, it is impossible to make a decision at will. Hariko said hurriedly, my ritual is the best research on the divine art. Now that it has achieved results, we should make a concerted effort and invest all our resources in it. Amato, Tsunade, Orochimaru, you people should know that I am right. Everyone fell silent. Hariko has the confidence to be so arrogant, because as he said, it was his ritual that made the research move forward a big step. Now it is reasonable to continue the second ritual. Even if it goes to the top, A is likely to support Hariko. Amato sighed, let's vote by raising our hands. The researchers attending the meeting began to vote by raising their hands. Obaru was the first to raise his hand to show his support. Then people began to raise their hands in groups of 3 or 2. In the end, there were more people who raised their hands in agreement than those who vetoed. Obviously, with the success of the first ceremony, many people had expectations for Obaru. Amato, Tsunade, and Orochimaru all chose to veto, but the vote had already passed, so Amato had to announce, the plan for the second ceremony has been passed, codename, Mars. The second update is here. Please recommend and vote monthly. Chapter 1362 The Exploding Comet. With the approval of Mars at the meeting, the Research Institute quickly mobilized, and dozens of groups and hundreds of researchers began to make intensive preparations day and night. The scientific research advantages of a powerful department that can mobilize almost all the resources of the ninja world were reflected at this moment. If a plan of the scale of Mars is prepared by a single organization, it will take at least several years, or even longer. However, under the strong promotion of the Institute, it took only 2 weeks to complete all the preliminary preparations, and it could officially start as long as the appropriate astronomical phenomenon appeared. While the Institute was urgently preparing for the Mars project, Shinji had already planted the sacred tree in world number 2. As he expected, after the Overlord swallowed world number 1 and world number 4, he immediately set his sights on world number 2. Similar to the previous situation, the Overlord had secretly polluted world number 2, so as soon as the erosion began, world number 2 immediately fell into a shaky state, so Shinji did not dare to delay and immediately planted 2 sacred trees in world number 2. Although he was not in the ninja world, Shinji still kept in touch with the ninja world regularly, so when the Mars project was ready, the Institute sent him a request for permission to start the plan. This is the rule. All large-scale projects of the Institute must be officially launched with Shinji's nod, although Shinji has never rejected the Institute's request. Are you in such a hurry? Shinji was a little surprised when he received the request for permission from the Institute. He didn't expect the Institute to conduct the second ceremony so soon, but he also wanted to see if the Institute's ceremony could really mass-produce 6 paths combat power, so after a little hesitation, he agreed to the Institute's request. Ninja World, Institute. Hikyu rushed to Amato's office and asked, "How is it, has the higher UPS agreed?" Amato nodded, "Well, I have obtained permission and can start the Mars project at any time." "Great." Hikyu rubbed his hands excitedly. Although he disliked the Institute, an institution that needed to hold meetings and ask for instructions, he had to admire the Institute's energy. You have to know that the ceremony he arranged for himself, both in scale and in details, far exceeded the one arranged for Orochimaru. And he also learned a lot from Orochimaru's ceremony. After all, although he was eager for power, he was not stupid. In this experiment that might threaten his life, there will be no loopholes. Amato asked, "Has the date of the celestial phenomenon been set?" Hermai smiled and said, "It has been set a long time ago. The moment Mars is lit up is the time for me to start the ceremony." He had only recently discovered this celestial phenomenon. According to his estimate, about 3 days later, a dazzling comet will shine on Mars, and once Mars is lit up, he can use the power of the celestial phenomenon to start the ceremony. Time passed in a flash. In a blink of an eye, it was the day when the celestial phenomenon was about to occur. The people in the Institute came to a suitable mountain top again and set up the ceremony site. Sure enough, compared with the ceremony of Orochimaru, the scope of this ceremony site was expanded by nearly 50%. Not only that, the ceremony site was also fully solidified, the ground was covered with hard stone slabs, various rituals were also carved on the stone slabs with special materials, and there were a lot of barriers protecting the periphery of the ceremony. Standing in the center of the ceremony, Hermione looked around at the 6 sacrifices imprisoned in the ceremony site, and finally nodded with satisfaction. These 6 sacrifices were carefully selected by him. Whether it is the chakra attribute or the chakra strength, they are in line with his ceremony. Outside, in front of the rows of instruments in the observation area, Amato asked the assistant beside him, "Are you ready?" The assistant quickly replied, "The scene has been arranged, and the ceremony can be started at any time." Amato nodded, and then looked at the people on the side. In addition to Orochimaru, who successfully survived the ceremony last time, Tsunade, Scorpion and other leaders of the research team were also in the observation area like him. They also put a lot of effort into the Mars project of Obito this time. Tsunade crossed her arms and said, "Orochimaru, do you think Obito has a high chance of success?" "Ha!" Orochimaru smiled contemptuously. Tsunade frowned, "What are you laughing at? You don't think this ceremony is good?" "Of course." Orochimaru raised the corner of his mouth. Tsunade asked, "Is there any loophole in this ceremony?" The team leaders around him all turned their eyes to Orochimaru. Orochimaru smiled and said, "If you want to talk about loopholes, I did find one. Amato immediately asked, what loophole? Orochimaru pointed at Obaru standing in the center of the ceremony. The biggest loophole in this ceremony is Obaru himself. Scorpion asked, what do you mean? The arrangement of the ceremony is indeed very important, but I think you may have misunderstood. After a pause, Orochimaru said with a proud face, the core and the most critical point of this ceremony is not the arrangement, nor the secret technique, but the person who presides over the ceremony. So the biggest loophole in this ceremony is not anything else, but Obaru. He is not good enough. Everyone was speechless. Who can tell this kind of thing clearly? Anyway, as long as there is no problem with the arrangement of the ceremony, we can only wait for the result. Just then, a star suddenly flickered in the starry sky under the night sky. Mars is illuminated. Amato whispered. Everyone in the observation area stopped chatting and looked at the ceremony site. And Hirako, who was in the center of the ceremony, started the ceremony the moment Mars was illuminated, and launched the enhanced version of the demon buds. For a moment, the gelatinous demon buds swarmed out of Hirako's body and rushed to the surroundings like a flood. The 6 sacrifices bound at the ceremony site were all terrified when they saw the gelatinous demon buds rushing towards them, but they were imprisoned and unable to move, and could only watch themselves being swallowed by the demon buds. There was no exclamation, no wailing, and the 6 sacrifices were all swallowed by the demon buds as planned. In the ninja world, the ceremony went smoothly, and on the surface of the moon, Otsutsuki Tonari was also attracted by the ceremony of the Institute and was observing the ceremony from a distance through the giant reincarnation eye. At this moment, he suddenly looked up and found that the comet that had just illuminated Mars was flying straight towards the ninja realm with a long tail. Sharon frowned slightly, that is. Boom! Almost in the starry sky directly above Sharon, the comet exploded without any warning. The first update is here. Chapter 1363 Visitors from Outer Space. Looking at the comet that turned into a ball of fireworks in the starry sky, Otsutsuki Tonari looked puzzled. Why did it suddenly explode? Swish! At this time, a figure fell from the sky and landed in front of Otsutsuki Tonari, jokingly saying, "Oh, is it the reincarnation eye?" Otsutsuki Tonari was shocked and immediately looked over and found that the figure that fell from the sky and appeared in front of him was actually a strange Otsutsuki carrying a fishing rod, a fish basket hanging around his waist, and a smile on his face. You. Sharon originally wanted to stabilize the other party first and pass the message to Karin and Hikari in the Flying Fortress. However, as soon as he said this, he felt a murderous intent coming from behind him, so he did not dare to be careless and quickly dodged to the side. Boom boom! Instantly, another figure holding a huge axe slammed into the place where Sharon was just now, smashing a big hole in the ground and stirring up dust. That was close. Sharon, who barely dodged, said secretly he uttered a cry, and then flew backwards, concentrating on the figure that attacked him. The dust in the sky was not an obstacle to his reincarnation eye. With just one glance, he found that the one who attacked him was also an Otsutsuki, but compared with the strange Otsutsuki holding a fishing rod, he was more sturdy and held a huge chakra axe in his hand. If he hadn't dodged quickly just now, he would have been hit by the axe and would have been doomed to be separated from his head. Who are you? While shouting loudly, Tonari was thinking about how to pass the message out. If it was just a simple call for help, he could use the giant reincarnation eye to send a chakra beam to the ninja world. At that time, not only Karin and Hikari, but also the Research Institute would receive the news. But in this way, the 2 mysterious Otsutsuki in front of him would definitely be on guard, and they might slip away. You must know that the task Shinji left for them was not only to resist the Otsutsuki who descended on the ninja world, but also to do everything possible to capture the descending Otsutsuki. The mysterious Otsutsuki carrying the fishing rod smiled and said, "Are you a descendant of my clan? Is Heike? Or Kagaya?" Is Heike was ambushed by Kagaya, and it was not easy for him to survive, so you should be a descendant of Kagaya. No doubt. The mysterious Otsutsuki carrying the fishing rod is the Otsutsuki Urashiki who descended into the ninja world in the original time and space. As for the one who just attacked Tonari with a chakra giant axe, it was the Otsutsuki Kinshiki. At this time, Otsutsuki Kinshiki also walked out of the smoke and dust. He stared at Tonari coldly. "Where is the sacred tree?" Tonari asked, "What sacred tree? You don't know?" As he said that, Urashiki looked Tonari up and down. "That's right, you shouldn't have eaten it secretly, so the fruit was hidden by Ishiki." Kinshiki stepped closer to Tonari. Where is Otsutsuki Ishiki hiding? Urashiki also shook the fishing rod in his hand. The fruit should still be there, as long as we find Ishiki, hehe. In the original time and space, when Otsutsuki Urashiki descended on the ninja world, he was willing to recruit Tonari because he needed followers and there was nothing in the ninja world that attracted him. But now it is different. A chakra fruit has just been born in the ninja world, and Otsutsuki Ishiki, who gave birth to the chakra fruit, happens to be in a parasitic state. Before completing the reincarnation ceremony and returning to normal, Ishiki cannot withstand the huge energy of the chakra fruit. So as long as he moves fast enough, he can get an extremely precious chakra fruit for free. This attraction is unparalleled. In addition, Momoshiki is competing with him, so he will not be as patient as in the original time and space to recruit Tonari. Seeing Kinshiki and Urashiki approaching him together, Tonari knew that there was no way to end it peacefully, so he prepared to fight and retreat, lead Urashiki and Kinshiki to the ninja world, and then join Karin and Hikari to catch them all in one fell swoop. Swish! After making up his mind, Otsutsuki Tonari activated the reincarnation eye chakra mode, and his body was instantly wrapped in the light blue reincarnation eye chakra. Hey! Otsutsuki Urashiki chuckled. He is a bloodline network, so he can't hide what level Tonari is at. He can see at a glance that after using the reincarnation eye chakra mode, Tonari barely entered the 6 paths level and has the strength to threaten him. Swish! Kinshiki didn't say a word, and rushed towards Tonari with the chakra axe. Compared to Urashiki who had already swallowed a chakra fruit, Momoshiki was more eager to get Ishiki's chakra fruit, so Kinshiki, who knew this, worked very hard. Boom boom boom! In an instant, Kinshiki and Tonari were fighting on the surface of the moon. Kinshiki's strength should not be underestimated, and as a direct servant of Otsutsuki Momoshiki, Kinshiki was responsible for fighting, and was a warrior and bodyguard around the nobles, so in terms of realm, he might not be as good as Momoshiki and Urashiki, but in terms of combat experience and fighting will, he was definitely better than Momoshiki and Urashiki by a large margin. Hey! Seeing that Kinshiki couldn't take Tonari down for a while, Urashiki, who was watching the show, exclaimed softly. Just when Urashiki was about to take action, another figure suddenly appeared, sneaked up on Tonari in the fierce fight, and knocked Tonari out fiercely. Poof! Tonari fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. His attention was on Kinshiki and Urashiki, and he had never thought that there was a third Otsutsuki hiding, so he was attacked by the other party. At this time, the Otsutsuki Momoshiki who attacked was floating in the air, looking down at Tonari on the ground. I am not interested in killing you, hand over Ishiki. Tonari's face suddenly became solemn. 3 Otsutsuki descended to the ninja world at the same time. Not to mention him, even Shinji did not expect it, because in the original time and space, Momoshiki, Urashiki and Kinshiki descended at different times. After all, this is not a visit to eat, and the probability of 2 Otsutsuki descending to the ninja world together in the vast starry sky is very, very low. 3 Otsutsuki descended on the ninja world at the same time. Even if I summoned Karin and Hikari, we have little chance of winning in a 3-on-3 situation. It seems that we can only find a way to escape first and pass the message to the Lord, so that he can take action himself. Thinking of this, Tonari no longer hesitated and immediately prepared to resonate with the giant Samsara Eye to pass the message to the ninja world. Swish! But at this moment, Otsutsuki Urashiki, who had a premonition, appeared in front of Tonari without any warning with 1,000 paper cranes instant body, and then stretched out a hand, and in Tonari's astonished eyes, he launched a pupil technique, using the ability to freeze time imprisoned Tonari. Seeing Urashiki take action to deal with Tonari, Momoshiki cast his eyes on the ninja world under their feet. Urashiki also came over at this time. The fruit must be with Ishiki, whoever finds it first will get it. Humph! Momoshiki snorted lightly. Chapter 1364 Too Greedy. Although he was very unhappy that Urashiki was competing with him, Momoshiki knew that now was not the time to fight with Urashiki, especially when Urashiki had already swallowed a chakra fruit and achieved the bloodline net. Then, he glanced at Tonari who was frozen in time and asked Urashiki, what do you think is the relationship between him and Ishiki? Urashiki, who was carrying a fishing rod, grinned, humph, is there any need to say more? That guy must be a partner carefully selected by Ishiki, otherwise, why would he stay on this satellite? Isn't it just to be a sentry and give warnings here? The actions of the Otsutsuki clan are often in groups of two, just like Ishiki and Kagaya before. Although Kagaya betrayed Ishiki and made Ishiki fall into a parasitic state and could only survive in the form of a wedge, in the long run, Ishiki must recruit another companion, and Otsutsuki Tonari, as a descendant of Kagaya's bloodline, is a perfect candidate from any angle. This is also the reason why Urashiki immediately used a technique to imprison Tonari after noticing something was wrong, because he was worried that Tonari would send a message to Ishiki and inform Ishiki of their arrival. If Ishiki received the news in advance and hid himself, it would be much more difficult for them to snatch the chakra fruit in Ishiki's hand. Momoshiki agreed with Urashiki's judgment. The appearance of Tonari on the surface of the moon was a very obvious warning, and Tonari obviously had never eaten the chakra fruit, so no matter from which angle you look at it, Tonari looks like Ishiki's subordinate. Momoshiki looked away from Tonari and looked at the ninja realm under his feet again. Is this the ninja realm? Such abundant energy. Urashiki's eyes lit up and he echoed softly, yes. Compared with the worlds they had plundered before, the energy contained in the ninja realm under their feet was obviously more abundant, and this was after 2 chakra fruits had been bred. Boom! At this moment, a violent chakra fluctuation came from below. Momoshiki frowned, that's it. Urashiki was a little furious, it's the breath of our Otsutsuki clan, such a strong chakra. Damn, there won't be other clansmen who want to get there first. The violent chakra fluctuations that broke out in the ninja realm instantly disrupted the plans of Momoshiki and Urashiki. They looked at each other, then hurriedly took off into the air and rushed towards the ninja realm. Ninja realm, ceremony site. The terrifying chakra storm swept across the entire mountain top, and Obito standing in the center of the storm laughed crazily, a little more, ha ha ha. Observation area. Amato frowned and stared at the instruments in front of him. These instruments are the latest developments of the Research Institute, and the upper limit of the data that can be measured is several times higher than the previous version. But even so, the row of instruments in front of him all sounded sirens, indicating that the data of the ceremony has exceeded the upper limit of measurement. Is he crazy? Tsunade on the side was full of disbelief. She knew that Otsuki wanted to play a big game, but she didn't expect that Otsuki would play so big that he even doubled the power of the ritual secretly. It was simply unreasonable. Unlike others, Orochimaru smiled. As someone who had experienced the ritual, he knew very well how terrifying Otsuki Shibuai's chakra was. His ritual power at that time was already at its limit. Continuing to increase the power of the ritual would not only not improve the effect of the ritual, but also greatly increase the probability of failure of the ritual. A mere mortal wanted to get more power from Otsuki Shibuai's body, which was simply overestimating his own abilities. So Orochimaru finally gave an evaluation of Otsuki, too greedy. In the center of the ritual. At this time, Otsuki's eyes were red, and the gelatinous demon buds were swaying around him, like a group of dancing demons. Until this moment, he had no intention of gathering the demon buds into his body, and was still thinking of using the power of the ritual to make the demon buds that swallowed the sacrifice stronger. The price of doing so is that Bailuhu is on the verge of losing control. If he makes a mistake, he may not even leave a complete corpse. As the leader of the medical team, Tsunade could not sit idly by and quickly turned on the loudspeaker and shouted, Bailuhu, don't go crazy, collect the ghost buds immediately, otherwise you will die. Bailuhu sneered. Immediately, he took out a needle from somewhere and stabbed himself hard, injecting the medicine in the needle into his body. Puff puff. In an instant, with the injection of the medicine, the wildly swaying ghost buds shrank instantly, as if their vitality was drained. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bailuhu launched the Ghost Bud Luojutsu and collected the ghost buds suppressed by the medicine into his body. What kind of potion is that? Is this part of the plan? Hirako must be hiding something from us. In the observation area, the leaders of each group started to discuss. Hiroko's move was completely beyond everyone's expectations. This bastard. Tsunade looked unhappy. Amato didn't care about these, his eyes were still fixed on the instruments that were still working. Het. Orochimaru chuckled. His point of view remained unchanged. The mistake made by Okumo had nothing to do with the ritual process, but was too greedy. At the ritual site, as Okumo took all the ghost buds into his body, the ritual came to the final moment. As long as Okumo could withstand the ghost buds and merge the power of the sacrifices swallowed by the ghost buds with himself, he would have completed the ritual. Soon, Okumo, who was standing in the center, quickly rose in chakra momentum, surpassing the test limit of all instruments in the observation area in just a few breaths, even to the point where Orochimaru, who was watching the battle, narrowed his eyes slightly and developed a desire to explore. Tsunade was shocked and murmured, "So strong." Scorpion took a step back stiffly. The chakra lingering on Baileahu's body has now reached the point where it seems to be substantial, making him, who has abandoned his flesh and blood body and only has the chakra core left, feel a sense of suffocation, so he subconsciously wants to stay away. The leaders of other groups could not hide their shock. Although Baileahu did not turn into a huge flesh cocoon like Orochimaru before, the chakra aura lingering on his body was better than Orochimaru at that time. Baileahu coldly swept his eyes to the people in the observation area and grinned, "You idiots, do you see that I am the real genius?" "Really?" Suddenly, a strange voice sounded behind Baileahu. Baileahu was startled. "Who is it?" The first update is here. Chapter 1365 The Otsutsuki Descent on the Ninja World. Looking back suddenly, Beiruo found that a strange Otsutsuki carrying a chakra fishing rod appeared behind him at some point, and looked at him with interest. He was surprised and suspicious. "Damn, when did you appear?" Urashiki carrying a chakra fishing rod smiled, "I didn't expect that you low-class natives would develop this kind of ritual. It seems that our Otsutsuki's technology has been leaked." "It's an Otsutsuki. I haven't seen it. Is it hidden in the ninja world?" "Damn it, it just happened to be at this time." Listening to the words of Otsutsuki Urashiki, the surroundings suddenly became noisy. Whether it was the researchers involved in the plan or the guards who maintained the order of the ceremony, they all felt as if they were facing a great enemy. Amado's eyes were stern. Although he didn't know Urashiki's identity like everyone else, he guessed that this strange Otsutsuki might have been lured to the ninja world by Shinji in some way because Shinji had repeatedly asked him about how to contact other Otsutsuki. On the field, Hiraho quickly stopped being surprised, and a ferocious smile gradually appeared on his gloomy face. "I was worried that no one could help me test the results of the ritual. Since you came to my door, I'll choose you. With your identity as an Otsutsuki, you shouldn't be killed by me in one go, he he he." Urashiki was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed, "A mere inferior creature actually wants to hunt me? Hey, interesting." Hiraho's body slowly sank. "Inferior creature? Humph, when I catch you, I will study you, the so-called advanced creature, on the operating table." Swish! Before he finished speaking, Hiraho, who was leaning down, bent his knees and jumped, and the whole person pounced on Urashiki who was close at hand like an arrow from a string. So fast! Urashiki was surprised, and the white eyes in his eye sockets instantly turned into a pair of blue reincarnation eyes, and then his body turned into countless paper cranes. There is no doubt that Urashiki launched the 1,000 paper cranes instant body. This pupil technique is not an ordinary instant body technique, but a time and space pupil technique involving time, which can almost dodge any attack that Urashiki can see. After dodging the attack of Baileahu, Urashiki flashed to a distance, and then swung the fishing rod in his hand towards Baileahu. Swish! Accompanied by a sound of breaking wind, the red fishing line with the fish hook at the end flew towards Baileahu. Baileahu immediately formed a seal and launched the quick escape, dodging the flying fish hook with a flash, and smiled, "Only this extent." Before he finished speaking, the expression on his face froze. He had clearly dodged Urashiki's fish hook just now, but he found that his chakra was suddenly reduced by a large part. Urashiki, who took back the hook, licked his tongue. "Tisk tisk, what delicious chakra! You're looking for death." The enraged Hirako began to form seals again, then spread his arms and launched his strongest offensive ninjutsu, Storm Release Secret Technique Storm Demon Dragon. In an instant, the sky was covered with dark clouds and flashes of lightning, as if a thunder dragon was flying through the clouds. Even Hirako before, the Storm Demon Dragon launched with all his strength was an S-level ninjutsu that could change the weather, not to mention that he had just finished the ceremony and his aura reached the 6 paths level, so with the launch of the Storm Demon Dragon, the whole world dimmed. Amado was shocked and shouted to his assistant, "Hurry up and arrange for everyone to retreat." The researchers woke up from their dreams and rushed to escape from the coverage of Hirako's Storm Demon Dragon, because Hirako had already he was crazy. The Storm Demon Dragon he launched directly covered the entire mountain, including the observation area. On the field, Hiraho didn't care about his colleagues in the observation area at all. He stared at Urashiki. "You Otsutsuki are just stronger creatures. Look how I trample you hard under my feet. Go, storm demon dragon! Boom boom! As Hirahu roared, the thunder dragon hidden in the dark clouds seemed to roar as well, and countless lightning bolts bombarded Urashiki on the ground. Humph! Urashiki snorted lightly, and then shook the chakra fishing rod above his head. With just such a simple shake, all the falling lightning was absorbed by the fishing rod, and finally turned into a group of light spots, which were sucked into the fish basket hung on Urashiki's waist. Bailohu's face changed. How is it possible? Not only him, but also the researchers who were fleeing in panic all around stopped. They never thought that this strange Otsutsuki would absorb Bailohu's storm release secret by just waving the fishing rod in his hand. Appreciating the astonishment on Bailohu's face, Urashiki took out the chakra light ball from the fish basket, played with it, and said, "You are indeed the strongest inferior creature I have ever seen, but even the strongest is still an inferior creature." After that, he smiled and threw the light ball. Boom boom! In an instant, the lightning that was absorbed by Urashiki's chakra fishing rod was instantly released and hit Bailohu not far away. This! Bailohu's eyes widened. Before he could react, he was swallowed by the lightning. Not only Bailohu, but also the entire ceremony site, including the test area in the distance, and even the entire mountain were attacked by lightning. Only Piyushi laughed in the air, watching the researchers of the research institute below fleeing in panic. Soon, the lightning stopped, revealing Bailohu's figure. Bailohu, who was scorched by the lightning, gasped and looked at Piyushi in the air viciously. At this moment, with a crack, cracks appeared on his body, as if something was trying to get out of his body. In the distance, although he was evacuating, Amato was still paying attention to the battlefield. Bailohu's condition was obviously not right. Just like the lightning just now, even Bailohu before the ceremony should have been able to dodge some of it, and not stand there stupidly and get hit by it all. And at this moment, seeing that Bailohu's body had cracks and the ghost buds in his body were about to break out of his body, he knew that Bailohu was finished. On the other side, Tsunade directed everyone to evacuate while shouting to Orochimaru, "Orochimaru, aren't you going to help?" Orochimaru sneered, "What's the hurry?" Tsunade said unhappily, that Otsutsuki and Hokuro are both crazy. If they continue to fight, many people will die here. Just as Orochimaru was about to answer, a roar sounded not far away. Orochimaru and Tsunade looked over and saw another strange Otsutsuki attacking the retreating researchers, while the guards, Kabuto Yakushi, Ranmaru, and Dairata had already gone up to meet them. Tsunade and Orochimaru looked at each other. There are two Otsutsuki. It's just a small favor, please help. Chapter 1366, The Great Sword Sweeps Across. Boom boom boom. The huge roar echoed in the mountains. The carefully selected ceremony venue of the institute turned into a battlefield because of the arrival of the Otsutsuki, and it was an unprecedentedly terrifying battlefield. Amato, Orochimaru, Tsunade, and others hid behind a cliff, carefully observing the battle situation. Because of the sudden arrival of the Otsutsuki Kinshiki, the battlefield was not only divided into two parts, but also disrupted the retreat plan of the institute, causing the originally orderly retreat to instantly evolve into a disorderly rout. The researchers could only flee in panic. As the leadership of the institute, Amato and Orochimaru naturally could not just walk away like other ordinary researchers. Tsunade punched the mountain wall. Damn it! Why is this happening? Where did these two Otsutsuki come from? Now is not the time to discuss this. Amato, who knew some inside information, interrupted Tsunade and asked the assistant beside him, "When will the support arrive?" The assistant quickly replied, "The news has been sent back to the institute, and the reinforcements should arrive soon." Because of the experience of the first ceremony, coupled with the powerful Orochimaru, the institute did not arrange too many security forces for the ceremony this time. High-end combat forces such as Yakumo, Bai, Aida, and Dimon did not come. After all, a large number of guards have gathered here, as well as the elite team of Kabuto Yakushi, Ranmaru, Dairata, and Orochimaru, who is comparable to the Six Paths combat power, so Amato did not think that there was any force in the current ninja world that could threaten this ceremony. Compared to the anxious Amato and Tsunade, Orochimaru observed the two battlefields with a playful look on his face. Otsutsuki Urashiki is currently being held back by Hirako. One of them is a bloodline net level Otsutsuki, and the other is a monster who has just undergone a ritual and whose chakra is at its peak. Therefore, although Hirako is at a disadvantage on the scene, the situation is still in a stalemate. The situation on another battlefield is a bit worse. Otsutsuki Kinshiki suddenly appeared by performing the space-time pupil technique, and he was ruthless as soon as he appeared, cutting off one of Dairata's arms with a chakra axe and knocking Ranmaru away with a punch. The guards in the research institute, the ninjas and a large number of reincarnation eye puppets reacted immediately and rushed forward together, but they were mostly dealt with by Kinshiki in a few moves. The scene was as neat as an adult beating a child. Finally, it was Kabuto Yakushi who activated the Sage mode and barely entangled Kinshiki, preventing the situation from getting worse. All of this was naturally seen by Orochimaru. According to his perception, the threat of Otsutsuki Urashiki, as the bloodline net, was obviously stronger than that of Otsutsuki Kinshiki, so his attention was more focused on Otsutsuki Urashiki, especially the special chakra fish basket hanging on Urashiki's waist. As for Otsutsuki Kinshiki, he felt that even if Kabuto Yakushi and his men could not stop him, as long as they delayed for a while and waited for the support from the research institute to arrive, there would not be much of a problem. Bang! Suddenly, there was another explosion in the distance, which made everyone's eardrums hurt and dizzy. Then, a figure flew out from the smoke and dust, crashed through several peaks in a row, and fell fiercely into the abyss. Amato and the others changed their expressions when they saw this. Undoubtedly, the figure who was knocked down and fell off the cliff was not someone else, but Hikari, who had been holding back Otsutsuki Urashiki. Because he had just completed the ritual, and his ritual obviously had huge hidden dangers, Hikari not only did not master the divine art, but he did not even reach the threshold of the divine art. This made him now have a terrifying chakra, but he could only use ninjutsu as the main means of attack. For Otsutsuki Urashiki, who was already a bloodline net, it was not an exaggeration to say that ninjutsu was to give him chakra. Urashiki could easily absorb Hikari's ninjutsu with the fishing rod in his hand and the fish basket on his waist, and then return it to Hikari intact. So as time went by, Hirako was unable to defeat Urashiki, and his body was unable to suppress the restless ghost buds in his body due to the fierce battle, which eventually led to a big problem for him, and he was severely injured by Urashiki when he saw the opportunity. Swish! Before Amadeo and the others could lament Hirako's defeat, a sharp air wave, wrapped in a blast of breaking wind, passed over their heads. What's going on? The few people were immediately in a panic. If the cliff where they were located was not low, the sharp air wave just now might have cut them all in half. As soon as the air wave passed, the ground under their feet shook, and then a deafening roar came from all around. Tsunade looked around and found that with the sharp air wave just now, including the mountain where they were, several surrounding mountains were all cut in half by the air wave, so it seemed as if the sky was collapsing and the earth was cracking. Orochimaru then noticed that the center of the sharp air wave was the Otsutsuki Kinshiki, who he had underestimated just now. Kinshiki was holding a chakra longsword and breathing slightly. The previous attack was called Otaki Sweep, one of Kinshiki's most destructive moves, with the power to cut off the trunk of the sacred tree with one sword, so the surrounding mountains were easily cut off like tofu. Even the entire mountain range was affected, and the people who besieged Otsutsuki Kinshiki just now were naturally more miserable. Many ninjas and reincarnation eye puppets responsible for security were directly annihilated under that blade, and almost no body was left. And they were just affected. The real target of Kinshiki's move was actually Kabuto Yakushi in the Sage mode. After several rounds of fighting, Kinshiki found that Kabuto Yakushi relied on the powerful perception of the Sage mode to be very slippery, which made him feel that he could not use his strength, so he directly released his ultimate move and used a sweeping sword on Kabuto Yakushi. Kabuto Yakushi naturally sensed Kinshi's killing intention in advance and prepared to deal with it early, but he never expected that the range of Kinshi's sweeping sword was so exaggerated. Even though he had escaped, he was still cut off half of his body. Poof! Kabuto Yakushi, who fell to the ground, spit out a mouthful of fresh air. If it weren't for the Sage mode that enhanced his physique and greatly increased his vitality, he would be dead now. But even so, he was seriously injured and lost his ability to fight. Dairata and Ranmaru also lost their ability to fight. Kinshi's sneak attack was too sudden, and their attention was on Otsutsuki Urashiki before, so they suffered a great loss. The first update is here. Chapter 1367. You will soon stop laughing. As Kinshiki's big sword swept across, the battlefield gradually calmed down after a while of shaking. Urashiki and Kinshiki were suspended in the air, looking down at the people in the research institute below. Urashiki, carrying a fishing rod, chuckled and said, "These people should be Ashiki's men." Yet, Kinshiki nodded in a muffled voice. After the fight just now, they already had a general understanding of the strength of these people below. Although they thought they were noble Otsutsuki, they had to admit that the people in the research institute were among the best among the lower creatures. Therefore, the two of them were sure that these people were all Ishiki's subordinates. In their cognition, only the low-level natives who surrendered to Otsutsuki could have such a strong strength. Urashiki continued said, after wiping out these people, Ishiki should not have many cards left. Kill. Kinshiki uttered a word heavily. Whether it is Urashiki or Kinshiki, they are all Otsutsuki who have plundered several planets, so they subconsciously compare the ninja world with those planets. They think that they have already solved an Otsutsuki tonnery on the moon. Now if they eliminate the people in the institute, Otsutsuki Ishiki should have no cards to play. Behind the cliff, Amato and Tsunade's faces are livid, and even Orochimaru, who was full of joking before, narrowed his eyes slightly at this moment. The appearance of the two mysterious Otsutsuki not only completely disrupted the research plan of the institute, but also threatened the lives of everyone. Especially when they saw the wounded everywhere, the senior members of the institute were naturally shocked and angry. Amato glanced at Orochimaru and asked sternly, if you continue to sit back and watch the two Otsutsuki slaughter our people, aren't you afraid that the adults will punish you? Orochimaru smiled, you are more important than others. As long as he can bring you back alive, he won't blame me. Amato's expression froze. Orochimaru put away the smile on his face and said in a deep voice, do you think I don't want to take action? These two Otsutsuki are not simple. I have no chance of winning alone. After going through the ceremony, he did have the combat power of the Six Paths level. But on the one hand, he was still in the adaptation period, and his control of power had not reached the point of being arbitrary. Second, he knew nothing about the other party's intelligence. In this case, reckless action is likely to end up like Beirahu. How could Orochimaru, who is so smart, put himself in such a passive position? Tsunade naturally knew Orochimaru, and said, you don't want to wait for reinforcements to arrive, do you? Orochimaru nodded slightly, of course, I'm not so arrogant as to think I can deal with two Otsutsuki. Looking at Urashiki and Kinshiki talking in the air, Amato said, they have no intention of negotiating with us at all, and they may attack us at any time. Then we can only escape. After a pause, Orochimaru said coldly, there are still many wounded here, which should be able to distract their attention. He has been observing and analyzing. Urashiki and Kinshiki are far from being strong enough to make him despair, but there is always a high ceiling. Shinji has a lot of strong men under his command, and there are Aida and Demon siblings in the research institute. He will not take such a risk for Shinji. At this moment, Urashiki in the air noticed Orochimaru and his men. Hey! Kinshiki, who was standing aside, looked in the direction of the sound and soon locked his eyes on Orochimaru. Because of the ritual of Hiriko just now, the entire area near the ritual site was shrouded in violent chakra, affecting their perception. Now Hiriko fell to the bottom of the cliff and his life or death is unknown. The ritual site was also destroyed by Kinshiki's big sword sweep, and the chakra dissipated, so the two of them immediately noticed Orochimaru who also had the aura of Otsutsuki Shive. And compared to Hiriko, whose aura was chaotic and violent before, Orochimaru's aura was undoubtedly more stable, which means that Orochimaru is stronger. He may be one of the most capable subordinates of Otsutsuki Ishiki, and he may even know the whereabouts of Otsutsuki Ishiki. Interesting. With a chuckle, Urashiki immediately pounced on Orochimaru. Kinshiki was worried that Orochimaru would fall into Urashiki's hands, so he immediately urged chakra and launched the heavenly feather arrow. A bunch of chakra weapons appeared behind him, and with a whistling sound that broke through the air, they shot at Orochimaru and others on the ground. Boom boom boom. Chakra weapons instantly smashed the mountain where Orochimaru and his companions were, turning the entire mountain into a pile of rubble. Swish! Orochimaru rushed out of the smoke and dust, holding Amato and Tsunade in each hand, looking quite embarrassed. He didn't expect Urashiki and Kinshiki to start fighting immediately, and to be so fierce. Seeing that Orochimaru had dodged his heavenly feather arrow, Kinshiki, who was suspended in the air, waved his hand, and the chakra swords, spears, swords and halberds that had just been shot out flew back to his side. Then he rushed towards Orochimaru again with an axe in one hand and a sword in the other. Damn it! Orochimaru cursed inwardly. If it was just him, it would not be difficult to get away, but now he still needed to cover Tsunade and Amato, and the situation was not good. Especially Amato, who was just an ordinary person. Even if he had some scientific ninja tools to protect him, it was hard to say how much use he could have when facing an enemy like Otsutsuki. But just when Kinshiki was about to chop Orochimaru and his men with the chakra axe in his hand, a figure suddenly jumped out and kicked Kinshiki away. Then, another figure flew over, crossed his arms, and said coldly, "Amato, I saved your life." Amato shouted, "Demon, Ada, don't be careless, they may be Otsutsuki who came from the starry sky." Undoubtedly, it was Demon who kicked Kinshiki away just now, and Ada who was flying in the air. The two of them can fly and have very strong mobility, so they arrived at the battlefield before Yakumo and Bai. Swish! Soon, accompanied by the sound of breaking wind, Yakumo and Bai, dressed in Akatsuki organization, also landed on the battlefield. Urashiki smiled and said, "There are reinforcements, tut-tut, it seems that Ashiki is not idle." Kinshiki, who was kicked away by Demon, climbed up from the ground and looked at Demon with unfriendly eyes. To Otsutsuki, Yakumo's face turned stern, and then he said to everyone present, "Aida, Demon, Orochimaru, I don't care what means you use, you can't let them get away." Humph! Ada snorted but did not refute, because she knew that Yakumo represented Shinji at the moment. Orochimaru smiled. Ada and Demon arrived, and with C&D coming, he must follow the instructions, otherwise Shinji will definitely not let him go. Urashiki laughed and said, "Can't let us go? Hey, this is the funniest joke I've heard recently." Yakumo said coldly, "Hurry up and laugh, you will soon stop laughing."